Hi, everybody. Welcome back to a special edition of Stefanie Drysdale's weekly cybersecurity recap. Today, our very special guest, Mr. Mathieu Gorge. He's the author of The Cyber Elephant in the Boardroom.
Mathieu was so kind enough to join us today. I was lucky enough to meet him on a panel that we sat on together a couple of weeks ago, and he just released this new book that he has authored called The Cyber Elephant in the Boardroom. So we're very, very excited to have him on and talk about this and let you guys know about this great new thing coming out. So Mathieu, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Delighted to be here.
Excellent. So tell me this, what was the inspiration for you writing this book?
I've been working in cybersecurity for over 20 years now, and I've been helping CEOs and board members navigate the often very complex landscape in terms of cybersecurity, cyber accountability, which, as you know, is really riddled with three-letter acronyms and technical jargon, legal jargon, and so on. And I realized very quickly that we weren't speaking the same language, right? So they come in with a business strategic language, we come in with a compliance, security language, and the two languages don't really compute. And so what I decided to do was to create a methodology to educate C-level folks and board of directors in cyber accountability. So the methodology is called the 5 Pillars of Security Framework, and it's based on the idea that whether you look at any regulation or standard around privacy or security in anywhere in the world, actually, it could be in the US, could be in Australia, in France, in Russia, anywhere, they all dial back to 5 common denominators: physical security, people security, data security, infrastructure security, which is your wider infrastructure. So your networks, your franchisees, your subsidiaries, your applications, remote workers, and so on. And then crisis management, what do you do when something goes wrong? So I've been using that methodology for a while, and it turns out that when I present the methodology to boards, it really feels like it's like the big elephant in the room, and they don't really want to address it. So that's where the title of the book came from, The Cyber Elephant in the Boardroom.
Excellent. So when you're having these conversations with the board, obviously, when everyone knows it's there, they know it's important, they know it needs to be discussed, but it's kind of one of those high level topics that people aren't really sure they're ready to have that high level conversation. How do you promote that and communicate that important message to the board?
Yeah, it's a great question because it's a challenge, right? So you should avoid fear, uncertainty, and doubt, because that doesn't really work. On the other hand, you do need to make them aware that there are risks, there are financial, reputational, and operational risks in not doing the right thing. I think that, again, it's a question of addressing the cyber accountability challenge in their own words, in strategic terms, that they can actually understand that they need to add this as part of the KPIs for the overall organization strategy. So one way to do that is to look at maybe putting cybersecurity on the balance sheet of the organization. Talk about, how do I bring cyber on the P&L? And it's not just a case of saying, well, if there's a breach, there's going to be cost because we're going to have to do remediation, we might have to pay fines and so on. It's really trying to sell the value out of good cybersecurity to the board. I often say that security is a journey and not a destination. And then you get a few pit stops along the way, but it needs to be a continuous thing. And it needs to really be part of the DNA of the company. So I think that the key to getting to the board and to getting them to give you a budget and resources and time to do the right thing for cyber accountability is to get them to understand that it has to be part of the DNA of the organization. If they don't do that, something's going to go wrong at some stage. There's only 2 types of companies, those that have been breached and those that don't know that they've been breached. But at some stage, they're going to need to face the music, so to speak, and address the cyber accountability mandates. So you really need to put it into their own terms, in business terms, and avoid making it too technical. It has to do with, this is why cybersecurity and good cyber hygiene is going to help us get to the next stage of the business. Because if we don't do it that way, we're going to have a problem, and it's going to slow us down and potentially even cripple us.
Agreed. I think that's a really good point to look at, speaking the board's language and speaking to the things that they are tasked with making sure are most important. In that same vein, whereas making cyber accessible to the board, let's talk about making cyber more accessible to every single employee. So when we're talking about the current pandemic and all of the remote workers that we have right now and the impact that that's having, how can we, best draw attention to cybersecurity for every employee, and really make sure that everyone is supporting the same cause?
Yeah, so the pandemic has created some very interesting challenges from a cyber perspective. What's actually happened is that literally from one day to the next, everybody had to work from home. And some organizations already had maybe a proportion of their users who were traveling, were potentially already working from home, but very few organizations had 90 to 100% of their staff working from home. And so we've seen a good number of companies going from having no one working from home to having everyone working from home. And as you can understand, it's increased the attack surface tremendously, because now you've got everybody working from home where they may not have a dedicated working space. They may actually not have left the office with company devices. They may have been asked to use their own devices that are not really protected. They may even use some systems that are protected and provided by their company, but which were not meant to access specific systems or data that they need to access from home. And so we've seen a huge spike in ransomware and phishing attacks and CEO fraud since March. And the role of every staff member is to ensure that they don't contribute to that additional attack surface, right? And that the additional attack surface that they have to have because of the current situation doesn't become a problem for the organization. So how do you address that? Well, you address that by promoting good cyber hygiene, by providing cyber awareness training. In fact, this year, October, which is Global Cyber Awareness Month, was very successful everywhere in the world, primarily because everybody was working from home. But you do need to make people aware of the risks. And certainly ransomware this year is very big. And I would hazard a guess that we're going to see some new attacks come out in the next couple of months with phishing attacks and scams around vaccines coming out, and click here to get it first, click here to get it 20% less. Because essentially the criminals haven't stopped. For them, the pandemic is just yet another opportunity to attack us.
Excellent. Great points. And I completely agree. We're seeing a lot of dark web activity for various vaccine scams and a lot of disinformation campaigns. So really, really important points. So I so appreciate you coming to talk to us. Where can everyone catch your book? Where can they find this?
So the book is now available on Amazon, on Barnes and Nobles, and on iTunes. It's called the Cyber Elephant in the Boardroom. It's a very good handbook to get you started. Practical advice and theoretical advice around the 5 pillars of security and education for the board. And it also has a number of guest chapters that have been written by security experts and compliance experts who actually put everything into perspective and explain how to implement the 5 pillars. And I really do appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and to talk about the book.
Excellent. Well, it's been my pleasure. So everybody make sure to catch the book and to follow Mathieu. And we will look forward to seeing more from you.